Excellent. So do we want to give it another minute or are we good to go?
Let's 6:02. Wait, let's wait 1 minute. And
Is
then
it-
whoever comes in, we'll just beat them up. All right, 6:03. Fire away, Deb.
Okay. Well, it's good to have such a great crowd, many familiar faces. To those of you who I haven't met yet, I'm excited that you're here with us tonight. My name is Deb Rowe. I'm the program manager for PACE, People's Action for Clean Energy. And we're here to talk about HeatSmart tonight. So an exciting topic for sure. And our other presenter tonight is Dan Raymond. He is with the Branford Clean Energy team, and he is a two-time HeatSmart veteran. So he's a pro at this. And we also have Bernie Pelletier, the wonderful vice president of PACE, and actually kind of the principal architect of HeatSmart Connecticut. So with that, I think we will get started. Everybody's putting their name and town and email in the chat, so that's good. We're recording the presentation and we're going to send that out with the slides later for those who couldn't make it, or if you really just want to read our slides over and over again, that would be awesome. So I will start to share my screen and get the show on the road here. Okay, can everybody see that?
Looks
Is that
good.
good?
Looks good, Deb.
Okay, awesome. I'm just going to adjust this just a little bit here on my end. So our goal for tonight is to explain enough about HeatSmart that you can take that information back to your clean energy task force, your town officials, and have a conversation with them about the potential for HeatSmart in your community. And moving to the next slide. Our agenda, oops, I skipped one here. Our agenda for tonight is we'll go over what HeatSmart is, and then Dan will talk to us about his experience in Branford. So in 2020, they were our very first HeatSmart ever. And then in 2023, they did a second HeatSmart, but this time they brought along East Haven. So they worked as a mentor town to East Haven. So that's pretty exciting. And then in the third part of the presentation, we'll talk about how to get started in your town with team building and town connections and funding options. And then hopefully have plenty of time for questions and answers at the end of that as well. So just to give you like the origin story of PACE, not of PACE, but of HeatSmart. PACE is an organization that's dedicated to helping towns get to 100% clean energy. And I know that most of the people on this call know that the recipe for that cake is efficiency, and then electrification of transportation and buildings, and then the third piece is clean energy. So back in 2019, Bernie was looking around and he saw, people are doing HEST campaigns, so they're doing efficiency. He saw people doing EV shows, and he saw people doing solarizes in their towns. But what he didn't see was the electrification of buildings pieces. So he wasn't seeing people promoting heat pumps, and he also saw that a lot of people didn't even know what a heat pump was back then, and a lot of people still don't know now. So he and Mark Scully, the president of PACE, looked to other states and tried to see if anybody out there was doing anything about this. And they found that in New York, they were doing heat pump campaigns and other places. So they learned a lot from those places and took pieces of that and cobbled it together into what today is our HeatSmart Connecticut program. And recently we were saying we had 11 towns in HeatSmart, but as of today, really, the press release went out, we have Groton as well to add to that. And we are currently working with the South Central Regional COG to do a 5-town HeatSmart campaign. So that'll be a first for us. It's pretty exciting to have a regional one so everybody can help each other on that. And we could talk a little bit more about that later. So what is HeatSmart? I think most of you are probably familiar with it, but at the heart of it, HeatSmart is a volunteer-led community outreach campaign designed to increase energy efficiency and heat pump adoption in Connecticut towns. So when a participant registers for HeatSmart, they come on the website typically and either click on the button, or usually we put a phone number too, and they're connected to a home energy solutions partner. And that partner, which is certified by Energize CT, so we're very confident in using any of those contractors, but we usually find a partner to work with, and then they schedule a home energy service. And normally it's $75, but if the individuals meet income eligibility guidelines, then it's no cost. And as part of this service, participants learn about the add-on measures that will improve the envelope of their home, such as insulation or windows. And they also learn about the rebates that are available for those add-ons. And the discount for installing insulation is especially good. And though there's never any obligation on the part of participants to do these add-on measures, it's really important to emphasize them in your campaigns, because this is how a home truly becomes weatherized. And that's what the state is going to start looking at in terms of weatherization. Do they have that insulation layer? And then the final step of HeatSmart is to provide information about heat pumps. And we really want to educate people so when the time comes to replace their current heating and cooling system, they can make an informed choice. And we all know that heat pumps are the most efficient technology available. And for some homeowners, they'll make the most economic sense as well. So if they can replace their electric resistance or their oil with a heat pump, better for them, better for the planet. So PACE tries to help out the community campaigns in a variety of different ways, but one of them is to provide educational materials, and usually we'll help organize the beginning meetings to get you started and help you find a HES partner to work with, as well as an HVAC partner. Usually the HVAC partner is more for education purposes, as we generally don't recommend a specific HVAC person, because everybody's experience, if you've ever tried to get a heat pump, is so very different, and you really want to get 3 different quotes and so on. And the other reason we don't do that as much anymore is that many towns don't like to promote a single vendor or a couple of vendors. But if a campaign really wants to work with somebody, we can do that as well. So let's see. So on our website, if you go look there, we have all kinds of materials as well, and videos about the heat pump incentives. This one that's showing on the screen, this video is about 12 minutes long, and it's pretty inclusive, and it should be up to date too. So if anybody wants to take a look at it, if you ever find anything that's not up to date, you can give us a call or an email. So one of the other important things that PACE helps campaigns do is to prioritize your outreach. So Bernie and Mark over the years have collected all the grand lists from the town assessors, and those are very rich data sources, and they include things like age of building, fuel type, ownership, location. And so we can use this data to prioritize where to send the mailings. We found that the mailing is the most effective outreach tool, but it's also very expensive to send the mailings. So we don't want to just send them willy-nilly. We usually do a couple tranches and start with those who could benefit the most from a heat pump, especially people that are on electric resistance, because the heat pump is so much more efficient. They would certainly have lower bills after that. And so we'll usually, the first one will be electric resistant, and then the older oil homes. All righty. And so we help with, as we said, educational materials, prioritize outreach, setting up meetings, and also we'll help with finding funding. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, but now we can move on to Dan, and he can share his experience.
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Dan Rabin. I'm a volunteer with the Branford Clean Energy Committee, and I'd like to thank Deb and Bernie for inviting me to share our experience in Branford. This slide shows the sort of the entities that are in the constellation of the HeatSmart program. There's obviously our own Clean Energy Committee. PACE was absolutely crucial. No,
Sorry.
back.
Going back.
PACE was absolutely crucial in supporting us, both with some seed money and with expertise during our first program in 2020. In 2024, we applied for and received grants, one grant for Branford HeatSmart, one grant for East Haven HeatSmart, as well as one grant for each of the towns for Small Business Energy Administration Advantage. And down at the bottom are the seals of the towns. And as I'll mention in a few minutes, the support of the mayor or the town administrator is super important to have a successful campaign. And I'd like to express my thanks to Jamie Cosgrove in Branford and Mayor Carfora in East Haven for being absolutely wonderful and responsive and supportive of both of these programs. Next slide, please. So this is sort of an org chart of how HeatSmart is organized, or at least how we organized it. And I think when you look on the HeatSmart website, or what Deb just described, are the details of what the program does and the objectives and so forth. But I hope each of you who's considering a HeatSmart program is asking, well, what am I going to do, and who's going to do what, and who's going to help me, and who's going to do the home energy solutions visit and all of those things. So this slide is intended basically to lay that out. So in the middle, of course, is who we are, the Clean Energy Committee. And the way we set it up really is as that we would act as liaisons between the residents in our town and the contractors who actually do the HES or the HESIE visit. Stephanie Weiner is from New England Smart Energy, is on the call this evening, and she's been wonderful. John Greeno and Joe Roy helped us in our first HeatSmart campaign, and I think having good contractors is one of the fundamental things of running a successful program. So again, the Clean Energy Committee does not, well, I want to say we don't do much, but we do the outreach to the community. And representing Town Hall, we act, I hope, as a trusted source of advertising, of information, etc. Next slide, please. And these were our objectives, was to increase residential energy efficiency, to lower costs, which would result in a lower carbon footprint in the town, and a longer range objective of ours was and is to change the culture within the town so that when people are looking to get a new heating system or air conditioning, et cetera, when they're looking at where they can invest their dollars with a real output, with a real payback, they look to energy efficiency to do that. Next slide, please. So we set up a website, and when people would come into the website and sign up, we asked them obviously their name and their email, their contact phone number, et cetera. But then we wanted to collect some information, and we asked them what they were basically interested in. Did they want a home energy solutions visit? Did they want a heat pump? Did they want solar or information about those things? And the last thing, we asked how they heard about HeatSmart, right? We also asked them how many times they heard about HeatSmart before they signed up. But let's look at some of the data. The next slide, please. So what did they want at intake? Well, it wasn't surprising that almost everyone wanted an HES audit. At that time, they were free. The next year, they went up to $50, and now they're sitting at $75. We think it's a fantastic deal. No, I can take a hint, Deb.
No, sorry, my it's literally doing it by itself. I don't know. It's crazy. Sorry.
We think it's a fantastic deal at $75. There are different estimates of how much people save year on year, but it's somewhere in the range of $400 to $800. So the $75 investment for the homeowner, for the resident, is well worth it. And we had 24% of our entrants said they were interested in a heat pump, and 18% said they were interested in solar. Now, 1/4 of our HES audits did not result in heat pump. I think, first of all, the heat pump process is much more complicated. It takes a lot of education. It takes money. It has to dovetail with the energy needs, the age of the current heating system. There are all kinds of complicated factors that come in. But one other thing that HeatSmart does is it gives people sort of a gentle way to get into this whole energy efficiency area. Next slide, please. So I think Deb mentioned a few of the outreach tactics that are really kind of pretty obvious when you think about advertising something. How do you do it? So we kind of sat down and brainstormed, and we thought about social media, newspaper ads, so ads, stories, press releases. The press releases are especially good because first of all, they come from town hall, and second of all, they don't cost you anything. Same with the feature stories, but it's a little bit more complicated because you have to kind of convince someone to write it. Word of mouth is obvious, neighbors talking about their own experiences. We made some videos, resident mailings, right? We used a variety of mechanisms to mail things to people. We did some Zoom presentations. This was during COVID, so we kind of had to wing it. And we also depended on our contractors to do outreach. So, and oh, okay, the photo on the right side of this slide, you see a banner that we had printed. I think it cost about $700, something like that. And we still have it. We used it in our 2020 campaign, and we used it again. We were naive or smart enough not to put a date on it, so it still works. So okay, so which of these tactics were most efficient? Next slide, please. These were answers from the participants again when they entered their information on our website. And you can see that direct mailing, in our case, they were all coming from town hall, be it a sewer bill insert or sewer
Sorry,
bill
I
insert,
was going.
a direct letter that we wrote and the first selectman edited and signed, or a postcard. We didn't distinguish between those different mailings. You can see that it's 3 times as effective as word of mouth or all of the other things that you know come to top of mind when you think about advertising. And our poor banner, which we're emotionally attached to, is down at 0.2%, but it brought somebody in. So next slide, please. So I think when I started out, I said that there's a team, that it's a group effort, and these are the trusted sources that we use, and I would strongly recommend. There are a whole bunch here. The secret sauce to the whole program is town hall. If you go to your mayor and the mayor says, I'm not so sure, I don't want to do it, I'm busy, and da, 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 you're always going to face a problem getting traction and getting town hall to do stuff for you. So it's going to be an uphill battle. In our case, Jamie Cosgrove was super supportive. We said we'd like to do this. Okay, he was there. He did it. He worked on. He supported us on the letters and all that stuff. The libraries are an inexpensive way to get the word out. They have a limited but faithful readership. People who look at their website, people to come to programs at the library. The churches are another way to do it. We have a program in Branford. It's called Living Wisely at Well, housed at the church on the green. So we presented there. Social services is an interesting one. If you have an income or low moderate income population in your town, the social services are the place that these people know for energy assistance, they know about the food pantry. They were running dinners on the green. We tabled there, and they were very supportive again in terms of working with us. The community dining room, the food pantries, that's all in that social services sphere. We did collaborate with the New Haven Community Action Agency, and that is one of a series of agencies throughout the state. And we sent out a mailing on their letterhead. That was Amos Smith is the president of the New Haven chapter there, and again we paid for it. They're just to be right up front, we paid for the printing and the stuffing and the addressing and the postage, which turns out to be the most expensive thing. But the point here is that there are people with access to the community who you should collaborate with and depend on. And of course, in the middle are the residents that all of these entities serve. So next slide, please. And I will turn it back over to Deb. If there are any questions for what I talked about, I think we can field them at the end.
Thanks, Dan. Branford is a great example of what a committed community can do. They got over 400 participants in their first one, and that's really exciting numbers. So just in terms of a HES assessment, it's a real benefit to your community. Your residents are saving money, they're saving energy. It helps with drafts and cold spots. The technicians test for health and safety issues. If they do find barriers like mold, asbestos, knob and tube wiring, and some of the other things, they can refer them to the right place. And now Connecticut has some new programs to hopefully get those fixed up. And one other neat thing about this is that you are actually reducing air pollution in your community. For every HES audit, it's about an average of 1,300 pounds of CO2 that is not sent out into the environment every year. So it is a true benefit to the community, the work that these campaigns do. And in terms of what goes on in an assessment, Stephanie's probably a much better person to talk about this, but again, they look for health and safety issues. They do that blower door test. They're checking for carbon monoxide leaks. They test for areas of heat loss. They seal them up. If the residents want it, they'll install the low flow water fixtures. They'll test the ductwork, seal leaks, insulate the pipes, and then they go over at the end, they go over the added measures of insulation, windows, and HVAC, and some of the other items. And if the resident happens to be income eligible, this would be at no cost. And just to talk a little bit more about the income eligible program, the incentives are much greater in this program, and insulation is almost always covered at 100%, and some of the other things maybe as well, windows and even heat pumps, if the person qualifies. And the qualifications go by household income. You can see the chart at the bottom of the page. Basically, if they already are qualifying for energy assistance, they'll qualify for the HES income eligible program as well. And then renters, of course, can also reap the benefits of this program. And in terms of income eligibility, if 50% or more of the residents in a 2 to 4 multifamily home qualifies, then everybody in that multifamily home gets that same HES income eligible incentive. So it's a real great thing for the residents as well as the landlord in that case. And for those costs that are not covered, there are several financing options out there from Capital for Change and Connecticut Green Bank. Not going to go into these much today, but the loan rates are pretty good on those. And just in terms of getting started with your town, one of the first things you'll want to do is build your team. So a lot of you are already on your task force, so you leverage your other task force members, get them excited about it, look for additional community members because they would have different networks and different contacts. And it'd be the same reason for organizational partners. Maybe you'd work with the Chamber of Commerce or some of the civic groups, or like Dan said, houses of worship. So those are all possibilities for partnerships. And we found that the stronger the partnerships and the team members, the more successful your campaign will be. And then the second part, you definitely want to get your town on board, your mayor or your first selectman. So here we have the North Haven first selectman, Michael Frieda, and he's been super supportive of all of Kenny's on the call tonight, but all of Kenny's energy efficiency HES campaigns, and also the HeatSmart campaign. And it doesn't matter whether they're Republican or Democrat or independent, everybody loves energy efficiency and they love to save their residents money. So it really is a great campaign for everyone to get started with. The third thing you want to consider before you get started with your HeatSmart campaign is how you will do your funding. You can do it on very little money, do an event here and there, but it is helpful to have some funds to do that mailing, as Dan mentioned. And sometimes you can get funding from the town, as North Haven did and Groton did. And then sometimes the utilities have funding. So Groton Utilities also threw in some money for the the Groton campaign. And then you can also get grants. There are a lot of grants out there right now. And one grant that we did get for our regional HeatSmart campaign was that Scrog was very generous to give us a grant for that. So that's also a possibility. And once you have these things in place, you're ready to go with a HeatSmart campaign. So hopefully at this point, you're pretty excited to take this information back to your town and think about how you could get started. So I'm going to stop sharing because I think people might have questions that I could answer, or Dan or Stephanie or Bernie is also on the call, and Kenny's experienced as well. So if you have any questions, Andy, go ahead. I see your hands.
Thanks, Deb. So I'm curious if you, Dan, Bernie, you could clear up what I've been hearing occasionally in the news about heat pumps being more expensive to run, and which was odd for me to hear because I've got geothermal for the past 13 years, and it's like my heating bill disappeared almost. So, any intel on that?
That is a good question that a lot of people are concerned about. There's a lot of variables when it comes to heat pumps. So they pair really well with solar. So if you're getting, your energy basically that way and not paying those rates, then heat pumps are usually pretty good on that. If you're replacing like an electric resistance, heat pumps are much more efficient than the old, baseboard heaters. So that'll do well. If you were to replace gas, it's not always the case that you're going to save on your energy bills. It really depends on the rates versus the cost of gas at any time. So I think, Bernie, you've delved into this endlessly if you want to speak a little bit about it.
Yeah, it's a great question, Andy, and clearly in some cases, so if you went from, let's just say, an efficient gas furnace to a heat pump, and you used a heat pump.
Oops.
Bob, can you mute yourself there? I'll mute him. If you go from a super efficient fossil fuel system with a low cost fuel like gas, and you switch to 100% of your heat coming off a heat pump, yes, your bills can definitely go up. But just as Deb indicated, it matters what fuel you're coming from. So electric resistance heat, there's no doubt about it. You're going to save money. Oil and propane, it sort of depends on the geopolitical environment. And also varies with, is it full replacement? Is your only heating source the heat pump? So there's a lot of variables, but there's clearly plenty of times, and the EEB has done a study, which I can share, that sort of talks about the relative trade-offs.
Okay, I see Kenny, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I mean, the other factor is they provide cooling. They're not just heat.
Mm-hmm.
And so my experience was I needed to have cooling in my house. I'm old and I'm home a lot. And what I found, I have a big mini split, and that it cools my whole downstairs. And I really don't see that much difference in my bill. I mean, obviously it went up some this summer because it was really hot, but just the idea that a lot of people are not used to, the heat now, and it's gotten warmer, and a lot of people don't have air conditioning. That's another good reason for exploring it.
Dan?
Yeah, one thing I neglected to mention is that through going through these HeatSmart programs, we've developed a series of outreach materials like letters, a buck slip, a little insert thing, announcements, press releases and so forth and so on. And if anybody is interested in seeing those, just send me an email, and you know, we're absolutely thrilled to share all of those things that we've done, you know, with you. They'll obviously need uh, some buffing, but it'll be a, you know, a good starting point. So
Yeah, no sense
just,
in reinventing the wheel. And
yep.
at Pace, we can help you with that as well. We can design whatever you want. We've done door hangers, we've done bookmarks, banners, etc. So the idea is to make it as simple for your team as possible. So you know, making the connections and all of that is the most important part of your team, but the educational materials and stuff, we got you covered.
And the website as well, Deb, right?
Yes, and the website. Yep. So yeah, and we have a basic template for the website if you've looked at it, but teams can modify it any way they want. So like Kenny had some testimonials from people that have heat pumps in his community, and so we're happy to put whatever speaks to your community on there. I see John Greeno has his hand up.
Just a quick question is in regards to funding. Are house contractors contributing anything towards the community? Dan, I can't remember if when I was involved with you all in 2020, and Kenny, I think we made some donations, but I can't remember if that's still a practice. Is that and also is that a way for organizations to actually raise a few dollars to cover some of their costs?
Kenny, are you speaking to that, or okay?
Yeah, well, we didn't take any money back into the campaign. If I recall, you and Joe Roy, as well as the current contractors, Stephanie Weiner and Lorenzo Wyatt, are contributing $25 to a charitable cause. In our case, they're the food pantries in Branford and East Haven. And I think Kenny Foscue did the same thing in North Haven. Kenny, what was the cause that you were backing?
Well, the first campaign, HES campaign, the vendors put in over $12,000 to a local charity. The second one, John and I'm sorry, I just spaced out. Roy, the donations went to our local food bank, which at the time was in the middle of the horrible pandemic and people really needed food. And I think we raised $6,000. But the point of all that is it's like an incentive for people another incentive to do this besides saving money. It's helping the community. So
I guess my question is, and then thank you for reminding me about where that money went to. Is it a possibility that energy task forces can make a little bit of money off of those contributions to help cover their costs? And what are the issues around that?
I don't think any of our campaigns have done that. And usually the task force itself hasn't ended up paying for any of the HeatSmart campaign. I don't know, Bernie, do you have more on that?
Yeah, I mean, it is a good idea. As Deb said, we've run these campaigns with no money or substantial funds if we get the proper grant. So, John, what you're talking about is potentially taking, say, $25 instead of donating to food pantry. I know Stephanie, for example, in Branford actually did a mailing. So the money didn't flow through the task force, but sort of the contractor themselves directly supported the campaign. So I think that's a viable way to go. And I also don't think there's any problem in taking the money in and using it for the campaign. It's just, we haven't done it, but I think at this point we look for money wherever we can find it so that we can do those outreach tactics that Dan displayed.
Yep.
If I recall, John, I think you and Joe Roy both chipped in some cash into our coffers, not dependent on the HES visits, but just as a contribution to support the outreach. I believe that was the case.
I think that's right. I kind of believe, each town is a little bit different,
Yeah.
and has different, I think we've done some contributions, or I did when I was involved. I'm no longer involved, as a contractor anymore. But I think the city of Middletown, for example, had a big campaign for a number of years, and we contributed some of that money towards the funding of that,
Mm-hmm.
of
I
that
think this
campaign.
is a good time to thank all of our HES vendors. They do an amazing job, and all the ones we work with have been fantastic, and you can't go wrong with any of them. So but the ones we've worked with again and again have just been so kind and generous with their time as well as these donations. So and they have great teams as well. So we've met some of their teams, the technicians that go in to the homes, and they're all very professional. So Peter.
I have a quick question on so the Inflation Reduction Act has a program for home energy rebates at the state level. And I know that Connecticut Deep has submitted its application. Does anybody know where that stands? I mean,
Yeah.
I would imagine some people like myself are kind of waiting to know if I'm going to get $3,500 to put in a heat pump, before I sign up.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I had that in my notes to mention the federal incentives, because they are not mutually exclusive, right? You can stack those on top of the state ones. So that's nice. So there are a lot of tax credits, which I don't think is what you're speaking of, but you can get tax credits for various things like heat pumps and energy efficiency measures. But are you speaking of the Her and Here program?
I'm just looking at the energy.gov/save/rebates, and it says it uses the term home energy rebates.
Yeah, so I think Her and Here, and those are coming in 2025. I think the state is focusing most of that to income eligible folks. But Bernie, would you like to speak about on that a little bit?
Yep, exactly. So it is coming in 2025. It will be mostly focused on income eligible and with a strong emphasis on multifamily as well. However, multifamily in the federal government's vernacular is anything with more than one house. So a duplex would count. That's a different definition that we use in our state programs. But one of the values, when at the very outset, Deb showed the little video, the 12-minute video of all the incentives that we have. One of the values of participating with HeatSmart is those things become known, as those dollars that you referenced turn into programs, the idea of how do you get that information to your residents? It would be nice to have an in-flight HeatSmart campaign so that we can assist in that regard. And one other big grant is actually led by our DEEP department, working alongside of NEEP. It sounds a little bit like a Monty Python movie. And I think we've, among 5 New England states, every New England state except Vermont, we got a sum total of $450 million over 5 years, something along those lines. Some of that money will potentially go to support these campaigns. So, i.e., we were talking about grants or money from the contractors or money from the towns. We might actually be able to participate in some of that community engagement money. So part of what we're about tonight is gathering up these cohorts of people to engage in these campaigns so that we're there. We're collectively, the people on this call and your towns are ready with a campaign. So when somebody says, we got some money here, who's shovel ready? We can put our hand up.
There have been 2 rounds of the community participation initiative, which is funded by the Energize CT. We participated in one for HeatSmart and 2 of them for the small business. And their 3rd round is under discussion now. It should be announced sometime in the next couple of months, I believe, probably sometime around the new year. And that is a good source of funding. It does come with strings attached. They do want to read all your materials before they go out and pass them by the lawyers. So you have to know, that up front, but it is a good way to spend more time reaching out and less time raising money.
And
So if anybody's interested in those, I would say, well, keep in touch with PACE, first of all. And the other way is to go on to energizect.org. Is it org or com? I don't know.
.org.
.org. And they will announce that CPI, Community Participation Initiative, sometime in the near future.
Yeah, so the focus for them also is EJ communities, but a way to do it is the way that Dan did it, is to partner with an EJ community, as a mentor or just a cohort kind of thing. And so that's a way to do it. But we were talking to Devin Williamson at Eversource today, and she did mention that they were coming up. So
yeah.
Bernie, did you have more on that?
Nope, you
Nope.
said exactly what I was going to say.
Okay.
And
Yeah, I mean, a little bit more detail there. If you have significant low moderate income population in your town, then you will fit very nicely into that. If you are an affluent town with a small population, then you have to figure out some other way. And it's application based. I mean, you have to submit. It's a, I don't know, 4 or 5 page application. It's not too onerous, but it takes a little bit of time to enter that. But as I said, it's quite a we got, I think, 4 grants for about $20,000 each. So it was quite a good way to get the programs off the ground.
I don't do Bernie or Dan, do you have any idea on how competitive it was? I know the first round, I think everybody that applied pretty much got into the program, but I don't know if in this last year how competitive that CPI money was.
I think the first year was kind of COVID and nobody knew what it was.
Yeah.
The second year now, I think people know what it is, and my guess is it will be increasingly competitive. On the other hand, we have given feedback, I know Dan has, and so have we, that they were kind of formulaic before, and so we're telling them maybe you could think about micro grants and smaller size grants and short-term grants. So we've told them to be a little bit, to take their pot of money and sprinkle it a little bit more imaginatively than they have in the past.
Yeah. In addition to the CPI, the Community Partnership Initiative, both utilities, I believe, have a separate foundations that they'll give a smaller amount of money to communities. So that's also something to think about. We did get a small amount of money for a program we were running in Kent.
Yeah, I mean, we all tend to think of the utilities as sort of a monolith, but it's actually made up of people. And there are some people that are very well intended, are concerned about the environment, who want to further energy efficiency in the communities. So we've been fortunate to be in contact with Elise Rodriguez at UI and Devin Williamson at Eversource, who are collaborating on this Energize CT thing. And they have been very straightforward, very helpful with us. So I think if you have questions about that CPI way, if you're thinking about getting in bed with the utilities, then it certainly would be a profitable thing to just to get in touch with them and say, we're thinking about this, what do you suggest, and so forth and so on. They've been very forthcoming with us.
Yeah, they're great. Are there other questions? I'm not seeing anything. Just run through the list here. All right. Any last comments from Dan, Bernie, Kenny, Stephanie, John?
I'll make one comment that it's great to have this many people in this diversity of towns interested. We've done this quite a few times now. I'm always surprised how much prep time it takes. So I know you start sitting down with a calendar and you say, oh, it's Veterans Day, it's Election Day, it's Thanksgiving, it's Christmas, it's New Year's. We can't do it there. And it does take a lot of time to pull all those parties that Dan and Deborah sort of said you want to pull together. So, but it's a great exercise. In fact, I'll go so far as to say, in the act of pulling together all these entities, it's actually a form of community building. So it's definitely something that I think it's fair to say, Dan, your task force has sort of strengthened its outreach muscles by doing this program. It's something for these groups to work on and get to know your community.
And it's fun. I mean, it's a totally different kind of challenge. I spent my career before I retired as a research scientist and as a medical writer. And this, they said, okay, who can do the publicity for this HeatSmart? And I said, okay, I'll do it. And it was totally outside anything that I had done before, but it was really fun. And it's good. The HeatSmart is a fantastic program. PACE is a fantastic organization. I mean, every time I interact with Bernie and Deb, it's first rate. They're great.
You're making me blush, Dan.
Aw.
I do want to say, where is Russ or Roz Kaplan there? You suggested, you're a small town. A lot of the towns on here this evening are small. If we can work together, like a lot of you are in the same cog as well. So you're not in the Scrog, you're in, what's the cog, Deb?
Lower Valley.
The Lower Valley River
River.
cog.
Yeah.
That might be a way to sort of help each other, and we'll help too, but
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
I apologize. Believe it or not, I could not find the raise your hand. So I was intimidated by that, but I appreciate your reaching to me, Bernie. Yeah, Dan, it's nice to have a face because we've talked a little bit. I'm overwhelmed by the breadth of your program and how you effectively brought so many people in. It's one of the challenges for us as a smaller town with a very limited resources. I mean, for example, we don't really have a budget, and we have we have just combined our Clean Energy Task Force and our Sustainable CT, which is an organization we joined just this year. And those are we're working, and those are in conjunction with each other through our task force. I'm seeing a number of people from East Hampton here tonight, which is great. So it's a nice place to start. But I'm most intrigued by how you reach out, how you reach out to those within your community and perhaps those in surrounding towns or close towns where we can do some of these things together. I mean, you spoke of websites, you spoke of ways of doing registration, putting together letters and news releases. At the moment, we're a 4-member task force, so the ability to get other partners inside our town and outside our town is very important to me at this moment, because we want to move on our HeatSmart program, and we're going to need a bigger group, if you will, working with us, and that's what we have to build. So I'm going to kind of be looking to you, Daniel, and others to say, we have some suggestions. And I also don't have a clue what kind of money to get a program up and running we should be contemplating, because it's one of the questions that will be put to us whenever we approach anybody in our town. They're saying, well, what are we talking about? And I don't have a clue. I mean, you seem to have a very robust program, Dan, and I don't know what that represents at all.
Well, okay, just to put just to put a little bit of quantity on that, Branford has a little bit under 30,000 people. I think there are 11,000 residents. That means households of some sort or another. And it costs us something on the order of 50 cents per letter to print it and send it out. So there you're talking about $5,000–6,000 for per mailing. Now, East Hampton is a different size. So,
13,000, but I don't know the households off the top of my head.
yeah, so it's probably something on the order of 5,000. So you're talking about $2–3,000 to do a mailing. The other thing I would say about recruiting partners is that if you have the way to do that is to get a clear idea of what you want to do, and then go to people, be it a town hall or other volunteers, and say, Deb, can you help me with a flyer? Or Kenny, can you give me advice on how to do this? And if you know what you want and your heart is pure, people will come and they will help you. So never say, oh, we can't do that, or I don't know how to do it, and I'm going to shy away from that because I don't have the expertise or the money. There's just do it. There's usually a way that you can work around these things. You mentioned Sustainable CT. We did a matching we got a matching grant from them, and I mean, I called my brother up and I said, hey, can you give me some money? He did, and my sister, and you just kind of, it's grassroots. It's making something from nothing, but you can do it.
Yeah, the other thing I would add to that is if you know what population you want to reach. So if you are trying for the, LMI community, and yours, or maybe the seniors of that little population, you might work with the senior center or, social services. So if you know what your population is that you're specifically trying to reach, that might give you a clue of who to reach out to. And one of the things we did in West Hartford, they're actually a very robust community with a lot of engagement. So we had a big team, but one of the things we did was a power mapping exercise to see who knew what, and who knows this person in this department, who knows the head of the building department, and just to understand like how we can reach out and use our resources and bring more people in. And I see David has a hand up, so I'll...
Thanks. I too had trouble finding the hand button.
Oh, sorry.
And now I'm trying to lower it unsuccessfully.
There you go.
There we go. Daniel, thank you for sharing your experience. It was really helpful as Russ and Kay, who had to leave, try to chart our path forward. I'm just curious, in any of your outreach, did you have like a town meeting, or we had an energy fair, which honestly was pretty poorly attended. But did you like send out a flyer and say, we're gonna have an information session on HeatSmart at the town hall on this date? Did you try any of that?
Yeah, we did that at the library on a couple of occasions, and they're not well attended.
Yeah, very disappointing.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't mean to portray that it's easy to do outreach or that it always works, right? We did a couple of events where we just had 1 or 5 people, and you always take that to heart. You say, oh, they don't love me, but that's just the way it is. And I think that the reason that the data that we collected was so useful was it told us, okay, people open letters from town hall, and they read it and they sign up. So if you're thinking about a letter from town hall and you don't say it's going to cost you, I don't know, $5,000, and you don't have $5,000, you could, as Deb said, pare it down and say, all right, let's go after the people who are heating with oil. And then that'll only cost you $1,500. And then you can build on that success and go to your mayor or your first selectman and you say, look, if you give us a $2,000, which is not a lot of money for town hall, you say, if you give us $2,000, we can take it to the next level. We can reach the people who are heating with propane, and here are the advantages that they will reap after this program. And they see it as a way to get out to their constituents with essentially a no risk program. So
Okay, thank you.
The way I always go about it is to give people an opportunity to help you, to help them, to help the residents. I mean, when I'm speaking or tabling or whatever, I always tell you have to lead off. Hey, I'm a volunteer. I have absolutely no financial interest. I'm in this for you. It's supported by your town hall. This is a great program. And then, they don't always sign up, but they listen. So, you have to work on your elevator speech too. It's a great learning opportunity.
All right, I think just Kenny, and then we can wrap it up.
Yeah, I just want to follow up and really stress what Dan has said and other people said, the importance of working with your town leadership. And also, if you're going to do something, you really need to start at some point with a mailing from the town, if at all possible. And we did a little experiment. Unfortunately, it was last summer we started our HeatSmart campaign. We kind of used, a few letters and stuff and posted some things on the bulletin boards, and we had like 4 people there. And then we went to our first selectman and said, we really need, to have a mailing. And we did a mailing, and part of it was to get the information out, but part of it was to specifically ask people to come to a forum. And I think we had over 60 people at that forum. So, I mean, again, that's stressing that that mailing, having a mailing. So,
Yeah.
Oh,
Old
Deb,
school
I know you
mail.
want to wrap it. Let me just say one other thing, that both Jamie Cosgrove and Mike Frieda have said that they would entertain contact from other administrators. So if you want to have your mayor call one of them, they will talk to you. They'll tell you, the benefits and how the program ran and all this and that. So if you're looking for support from our towns, that might be one way to to go about it. Sorry, Deb.
Oh, no, I
I know
think David, last thing. Looked like you had your
No,
hand.
I was just saying thumbs up.
Oh, thumbs up. Okay.
Thanks, Daniel.
Yes, thumbs up. Kenny and Dan are great. Their first selectmen and mayors are great. So there's a lot of support out there for this program, and we're here to support you. If you're thinking about a program, you can reach out to any of us. And you know, if other communities are going to do it at the same time, it could be a cooperative effort, especially if we got some more COG money or something of that nature. So if you have any questions that you know, thinking of in the middle of the night, oh, I've got a HeatSmart question, just reach out. I think most of you know how to get a hold of us. All right. Well, thank you all.
Will you send out the slides?
We will send out the slides and the recording. Yep.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay. Well, have a nice night, everybody.
Have fun, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Gonna stop this recording.